Hey, 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 welcome to gamesvitae. My name is Majay. Today we are continuing our top 100 games of 2025. This has been a very prolonged process for a number of reasons that I explained in the last video. I'm not going to go back into that today, but I'm going to try and keep going on this series so that we can finish it and move on to other things. So, before we get started, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button for future content. Okay, let's get into it. Today's list is from number 70 through 61. So, number 70 is Sagrada. Sagrada is a dice drafting placement game, and this is the first edition. They've come out with the second edition recently, which I'm kind of not necessarily worried, but because I've got a couple of expansions, but I don't have two of the expansions, and I hope that they don't make the expansions non-backward compatible, such that it fits the way that this game looks. But what Sagrada is about is that you're trying to make stained glass windows with these different colors and number value of dice. And in and of itself, that can be challenging, but there are tool cards that you can use to break the rules for placement. And there's a lot of different tool cards, and it's how you go about using the favor tokens that you have to maximize your ability to fill your window with these different values. I actually got this as a gift years ago, and it's one of the first games in my now very large collection. But I had it on my list to give to somebody else, and my family thought that it was for me. So I end up getting it, and it's a game that it doesn't hit the table as much anymore, so it has fallen a little bit, but it's a good game. And it's a game that it's puzzly, and sometimes you're at the luck of the roll, and that's where the tools come in. And sometimes, though, those tools can you can lose the ability to access them based off of what you've done thus far. So Sagrada is a great game. I like the content. I wouldn't mind having more content, but it needs to hit the table more in order for me to justify that. So number 70 is Sagrada. Number 69, I don't own. I've played it once or twice, and yeah, you might think, well, why is it this high on the list? I have this game this high on the list for a reason, and that game is Smallworld. Smallworld is an excellent game to illustrate the law of diminishing returns. It's an area control game where each player starts with their own mythical race that they are trying to conquer territory with. And each race has their own asymmetric ability or advantage. And as you expand out onto the map, your forces get thinner and thinner spread, and you get to the point where, all right, I've these units are doing a great job, but I'm not able to do as much with them anymore as I used to the point where you've got maybe one unit per territory, and that's not very strong. So you have to make a decision. Do I keep going with this race, or do I let that race fade and start with another race? And it's just a really interesting decision space. So that's why I have it on the list. I've seen multiple copies for sale on Marketplace and local internet for sale sites, and I haven't purchased it. Part of that's because I'm trying to watch my money, but another part of it is I wonder what place it has in my collection, and that I have a lot of games that I'm not playing. So why am I going to buy another game, whether, as to whether I'm going to pursue it? It's a kind of a catch-22 balancing act that I'm trying to figure out. And if I saw Smallworld at a good price, which right now I'd say $20 is max, uh, and it was in the right condition, then maybe I would think about buying it. But as of right now, it's still on the list of competing for a spot on my shelf. So, Smallworld, number 69. And my list keeps turning off. I really need to do something about that. Okay, number 68 is this is a game that I would put up there as a game I wouldn't play I would rather play instead of Clue. And that is Suspicion. I found this at like Target years ago and I thought to myself, oh, that looks interesting. So I bought it and we just have a ball with this game. It may outstay its welcome a little bit, but it's a game that's easy enough to play, and you are using line of sight to try and deduce who everybody else is. All the while, you're collecting sets of gems and things like that, and it's just a very fun game to play. It's a great family weight game, and it's a game that doesn't take itself too seriously. So number 68 is Suspicion, and I don't see this falling off my list anytime soon because it's just a great game to play. We haven't even played it very recently, but if I were to say, "Hey, we've got some time, let's play Suspicion," I don't think we'd have a hard time getting it to the table. So, Suspicion number 68. Okay, number 67. I don't have here. It's in storage, and I think this game was ahead of its time. It's a game from my childhood. And if it were here today, I would say, let's play this game. And I think I'd have just as much of a ball as I did when I was a kid. And that is Bonkers. If you look it up on like Board Game Geek, you'd have to look up this game is Bonkers, but it was always called Bonkers. Bonkers is a board programming game, basically, where you lay down these cards, which really should be tiles, that program what you do when when your token hits that space, such that you could lay it down. It says move 3. If your token hits that space, you move 3, and you're trying to get these different score markers to move up on the score track. And I think the game was just ahead of its time because when we were kids, it was pretty much limited to things like roll and move. And here you have a game where it gives you somewhat control of your destiny. And it was a lot of fun because you'd move and and you'd go through these sequences. It's a cascading effect of tiles of move programming where you move 3, you go 3, and then it says, oh, that goes back 2, and then that you go back 2, and then that one says go to score, and you'd score a point. And you could do that also to get other. You'd probably have to kind of fall on the sword on this one in programming to make it such when people hit something, you'd go to lose and you'd lose points. And I think it was a game that I would love to play again, and maybe even see a version of it that's like a ramped up version, because Bonkers was just a game that, gosh, I played it 100 times, I swear, and it was just a lot of fun. And you can get it today. It's the exact same game. I looked into it. The board, I thought, the board looks a little different. But then I compared the board with the board that I had. I'm going, no, it's the same game. And if you can get it today, especially if you're a young family with kids, This is a great, great game to play with your kids. Bonkers. Or the way you'd look it up on Amazon is this game is bonkers. So that is number 67. Okay, 66. This is like the only print and play game I have on my list, I think. Watch, there's another one farther up and I can't remember. But this is a game that it's a party game, but it's so interactive and it's so different than like your typical print and play. And that is Keep Talking and No One Explodes. This was introduced to us by my daughter, who played it with her friend, who he's a great guy, and he does a lot of Steam gaming and things like that. But Keep Talking and No One Explodes. One person is the bomb diffuser, and everybody else uses this manual to go through different modules that you have um, to to figure out how to walk the person who's diffusing the bomb through diffusing the bomb. You've got codes and wires to cut and different words to figure out and things like that. They've got some modules. I'll get into that in a second. But you talk the person through it, and you're on a timer. So you've got to get this bomb diffused before the timer goes off or the bomb explodes. And it's got a lot of replayability up to a point. Some of the replayability is actually part of the reason why it might not get to the table as much. And that is the Morse code module. I'm not very good at deciphering Morse code. And we actually have things that help us decipher it. But if you're not used to seeing that, it's hard to do, and it can be discouraging. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a great party game. I've said several times on this list that party games aren't my thing, but I actually have quite a few more party games on my list than I realized. This is a party game that I would play before almost all the others, and maybe it should have been higher on the list because of that. But Keep Talking and No One Explodes. I believe you can get it through. I got it through something called Humble Bundle, and it was like $5. And I'm going, oh my gosh, that's cheap. So I got it, and we've played it a lot. We haven't played it recently, but it's a great game. It's it's app dependent. So yeah, you print this off, but the bomb that you manipulate is on a computer screen, and you're doing everything on the computer screen. And I highly recommend using a mouse, not a touchpad. So if you're interested in a party game that kind of is off the beaten path, Keep Talking and No One Explodes might be your guy or girl. Okay, number 60. That was number 66. 66. Yeah, 66. Number 65 is a game that I'd seen for years and years, and I was never interested in it. To me, it looked cheap, and I just didn't think that was for me. And then I saw it for sale because it had gone out of print, and I think it's still out of print. And I decided to get it for my dad for Father's Day. And my dad's getting old. He is old. And I thought that it would be a good game to play with him or somebody else to play with him too, to keep up his mental acuity. And I played it with him several times, but nobody else really would. So the game is Tack. Tack is a game based off of a game in a book that didn't exist. And somebody said, well, let's make a game after the game in the book. So they did. And it is so simple to learn, but very deep in strategy. The object of the game is to lay down these pieces. They're called stones. And if you lay them flat, they create a path from one side of the board to the other. It doesn't have to be direct, but it has to go from one side of the board to the opposite side of the board. And you can place these stones in empty squares. And once they're down, you can move them either individually or as stacks. And you can do it almost, like a Mancala placement as you move across these board. And you can also lay these stones standing up, which create walls. They're not part of your path, but they block people, including you. Or you can use these called capstones. They count as part of your path. They can't be stacked on top of, and they can flatten walls. I like this game much more than I thought I would. If you can find a copy of it, like I said, it's out of print. I don't know why. Maybe it just didn't sell very well. But this is first edition. There was a second edition, and I think like a sister second edition. But the second edition had a wider variety of boards. You play this on a grid, a square grid, and you can play it on as small as a 3x3 grid or as large as like an 8x8 grid, but you need a special board for that, and I think a second set. But it's a game that is very adaptable to playing time that way, because it's just, the smaller the area, the less pieces you have also, and it can maybe last a long time, but it's a game that, like I said, is easy to learn but deep in strategy, and I highly recommend TAC. Number 64. Did I get everything? Let me just check. Sagrada, Smallworld, Suspicion Bonkers. Yeah, okay. 64. I got this for my wife, thinking that a nice two-player game and the theme would click. Mixed results. And that is Patchwork. Patchwork, and this is the Americana edition. I think this is just a reskin. I don't think there's any change in how the game plays. It was cheaper than the original, so I got this. Patchwork is a tile drafting, polyomino drafting game where you're trying to fill out your quilting grid, and it's interesting because as you pick up these polyominoes of these quilting squares or pieces, segments, you are also getting spending time, which moves you up on the movement track, as well as buttons, which is both the currency of the game and the way you win it. Whoever has the most buttons wins. And I think it's a very easy game to play, very easy to learn, but it's got some really good strategy. I played it with my son over like Christmas, and he said, "Wow, I think my wife would really like this game." And I don't know if he ever bought it, but it's something that is a great game for couples. And if you're looking for a nice game that's not cards, which most games are, a lot of two-player games are card-based. This one is not. And it's got a great decision space, action selection, and drafting mechanism that I really like. So Patchwork is number 64. I got to keep track of what I'm saying. Yeah, 64. Okay, 63 is the game that I mentioned earlier in previous segments that I like about this is my favorite trick-taking game because it's so original, and that is Cat in the Box. Cat in the Box is a game in which you have a hand of cards that are all numbers, but they don't have a suit yet. There's a board that has the red, yellow, blue, and green suits, not necessarily in that order, out there with all the numbers of those suits. And when you play like a 7, you play a 7, and then you take your token, your colored token, and put it on the say I'm saying, okay, this is a yellow 7. I take my token and put it on the 7 in the yellow track. From that point on, nobody can play a yellow 7. And it goes on like that, trying to win tricks. And you bid how many tricks you think you're going to win. And the red is trump, which you can't do unless somebody breaks it through not having a card or things like that. And it gets to a point where you say, all right, I'm going to say I no longer have blue. From that point on, you can no longer play blue. But maybe that enables you to break trump. It's clever, it's frustrating, and sometimes you get to a point where you can't play a card because you've said, "Oh, I don't have these suits anymore," and the only numbers that are available are in the suits that you said you didn't have. So that creates what they call a paradox, and you lose right away. The round ends right then and there, and you start another round. It's a great game. I got this one. It's the deluxe edition. Since then, they've had like a super deluxe edition with larger pieces and things. It's like you don't need that, and I already had this. It's like okay, I don't need that. But if you like that kind of thing, you want bigger pieces, look for the super deluxe. But the deluxe edition will do you fine, and it's a very clever, fun trick taking game that is trick taking just pure and simple. Well, as simple as Cat in the Box makes it. So, Cat in the Box, number 63. 62. This game actually makes it to the table very easily, but everybody who plays it will agree that they question how well it's balanced. And that is Rival Restaurants. This is the Kickstarter exclusive deluxe edition, so it plays up to 8. If you want this, you can go to the website, and sometimes they still carry it for 8 people, and the more the merrier. It gets so chaotic. It's really good. Um, one thing, a gripe I really have with this publisher is that it originally came. You could download a timer that goes with it that's specifically themed and scheduled to the various phases of the game. Well, I think you can still get it for Apple. I'm not sure. I don't have an Apple. But you can't get it for Android. And the phases are timed. That's what kind of makes it so chaotic and frenetic and fun. So I asked them, when are you gonna bring this back? And they say, well, we're not sure whether we need to recompile it or tweak it or just start over. And I had it originally, and I can't remember what happened to it, but it it I don't know what bugs were in it, but it worked fine. But if you're gonna say that you're gonna do something, and I look at Gollum Arcana, that game is worthless because the app is no longer available and not supported, and the publisher refuses to release the code. If you're gonna make a game that has an app and you promise the app, then you better dang well keep up with it. It's just that simple. But back to the game. The game is basically kind of contract fulfillment. You're trying to build these recipes, and you have a chef. Each player has a chef with their own asymmetric power, which some of them, in my opinion, are OP. and every person has a restaurant, a different type of restaurant, like a Mexican restaurant, an Italian restaurant, Vietnamese restaurant. They each have certain abilities, which again, some of them can be OP. And you're trying to get to 20 points, and you can do various level ups for your card that enable you to have more than pick from more than one recipe, or cook more than one item at once, or things like that. It's a fun family game. It take Pit, the trading game, and turn it into a board game where you're trying to make recipes, and you've got rival restaurants. It is a lot of fun. I, I actually, if I had time, and I don't feel like players should have to do this, but if I had time, I'd like to test the balance of the characters that are of concern to me and see if my gripe is actually legitimate. But sometimes perception is reality. There's a chef in here named Mortimer Sleesberger. He he's a very powerful chef, and you put him with the uh, I think it was the Mexican restaurant, and he becomes almost unstoppable. So I think that this is a great game, and I don't want to get rid of it. But sometimes getting to the table is inhibited by the idea that somebody might have a clear advantage based off of what chef they get. So, rival restaurants, great game. If you get it, make sure you get the deluxe version at least, if not the Kickstarter deluxe version, because it comes with some very good organizers that you want to get, and the component quality is a little bit better. So, rival restaurants. Okay, last game on the list. I actually played very recently and had a great time. Didn't win, but it's probably the greatest game of um, I shouldn't say greatest, but it is a great game of bluffing and set collection and things, and that is Sheriff of Nottingham. Sheriff of Nottingham. This is the first edition. I wouldn't touch the second edition with a 10-foot pole. I've looked at it. It looks cheap. They skimped on different things. Uh, Hopefully, with Come On selling off a lot of their IPs, um, Arcane Wonders will get this back. I actually know a guy that works for Arcane Wonders, and he was kind of hush hush about it, so I don't know. But Arcane Wonders, this version is literally the best one. I have the expansion to it, which makes it even better. You are trying to collect goods. There are 4 goods that are approved that you can always get through if you declare them properly: bread, chicken, apples, and cheese. But there's also contraband, which is much more valuable. And anytime you declare something, you can have up to 5 cards in this pouch that you have. That the sheriff, who everybody takes turns being the sheriff can't see what's in the pouch. You tell him, "Oh, I've got 5 apples in my bag," and as long as it's 5 apples, you're good. But the likelihood of you being able to get all 5 apples in your hand is not exactly high. So sometimes you're trying to sneak other legal goods in, but because that's not what you declared, if he opens your bag, and he can choose to, you're going to lose points on that. You're not going to get points on it. Anything that was legal, that was part of the declaration, goes through. Everything that wasn't is confiscated. Same thing with contraband. But this is where the bribery comes in. You have to bribe the sheriff and see if he'll do it. You can bribe him with money. You can bribe him with favors. You can, as long as it's related to the game, anything goes. The art in this game is so good. That's why I don't like the second game. The second game, the cover art looks good, but the individual cards are really plain Jane, and it's very clear that they were just trying to uh, maintain the copyright, and it's it really is probably in better hands with Arcane Wonders. But Sheriff of Nottingham, great bluffing game, great. Uh, it's just a great game to play, and with the expansion, you can play up to six, and it's just it scales well. Obviously, the more players you have, the longer time it is. But again, this is a game that when it was with Arcane Wonders, you could get a timer, but now you can't because Command didn't do that, and um, Arcane Wonders just didn't keep it up. So, um, Sheriff of Nottingham is number 61. Okay, that is numbers 70 through 61. And we are going to just try and plow through these and get it going because it's already halfway through 2026. And we got to get this going. And Prime Day is coming up soon. So I'm going to do my annual Prime Day special telling you what are deals and what are duds. So, going to make sure that we get through that and make sure we get back on schedule. So, please remember that no board games were harmed in the making of this video. So set your mind at ease. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.